Alrighty, I am looking at the 1995 and 2025 dietary guidelines to compare and contrast. I will say, as far as 2025, the biggest thing that I noticed is the change of tone. It is a lot less neutral in tone and terminology, wording, language, and all of that. Less kind of scientific language used, and more so using or saying things like the fact that we are in a health crisis due to poor health choices that have led to obesity and so on. While I feel like previous iterations of the dietary guidelines have been more so focused on like these are tips that you can incorporate in your life to be healthier. Another thing I noticed is the big jump in length. I will say from 95, it was 25 pages, so not as big of a jump to the 2025, 10 pages of information. But when you compare it to 2020, which is the most recent prior to 2025, so within 5 years, it went from 164 pages to 10. So big jump, which has led to a lot of information just being super condensed, very generalized and everything. So instead of a good variety of like length of like here's pages and pages on what to do and incorporate if you're lactating or pregnant and everything, this is just kind of like a blurb in the 2025 version. I will say, kind of reflective on this, I've been in healthcare for like going on 10 years, so since 2020 or 2016. And I have seen and I have heard providers say that certain resources from the government can be kind of intimidating, sitting at, like 164 pages. So we would use a lot of like the My Plate and kind of visuals to explain to people because, 164 pages is very intimidating. It is long. People are busy. They might not sit down and read all of that. Whereas a 10-page document is maybe more accessible, digestible, and everything to the everyday person. So kind of good there, I will say, a pro. And then another thing, that was noticed is the fact that the food pyramid kind of changed in structure. So in 1995, we've got the grains at the very base and fat towards the top. The 2025 food pyramid, we have grains at like the tip top, like less incorporation of that, and then fat did shift down more so towards the middle. I will say this doesn't seem very reflective of the DRI percentages that we're taught and everything, which could be a little misleading to the everyday person on how to like portion everything on their plate if they didn't know about My Plate and everything. Despite the differences though, and despite the different approaches, there are still similarities in how, the tips are incorporated. Like, so same, we want a variety of foods. We want like the same food groups incorporated, even if at different percentages and everything. So the same goal is to just have healthier people. Another big goal that I have noticed throughout like time is the like goal of weight management, or especially like weight loss. Especially in 2025, we see a lot of language targeting obesity as a big goal, to like try to treat, especially saying things like how chronic conditions are not due to like genetic destiny, and stuff. So, word for something to think about. Like I said, I've been in healthcare for a long time, so I have seen a shift in like language in things that have been kind of provided, particularly like from the government and everything. I do remember like even throughout my lifetime, just the change in the food pyramid. So like, I very vividly remember just even the shift from like the pyramid that has like the going upwards to the one that's going like side to side. It has the staircase, like that one was big. So this change has also been pretty big, especially just the proportion of how grains have changed from like a pretty big amount on the food pyramid to like tiny amount. I will say what this has essentially made me reflect upon is the importance of thinking critically. While the 2025 guidelines are good basics and just like, like nutrition 101 kind of things, it is still good to think about things critically. The terminology that is used is not very aligned with my mindset, especially of like the health at every size mentality, especially coming from someone in a bigger body. But it makes you think, like, you have to take into consideration who the information is coming from, You know, where is it coming from? What the credentials are of the person who is writing it and everything, their background in, you know, information, or, you know, in this case, background in nutrition and everything. Is the language like trying to sell you something and everything? So while it is good kind of to like digest this information, sit with it, like, you know, consume it, it is also important to take into consideration, you know, and kind of reflect on it and maybe research more on it and kind of look at different resources, and so on. But yeah, thanks.